Hey, sorry for the tech issues. We can start now. Hey, thank you so much for joining. This is going to be in English because we have some international people here and online. So thank you everyone who joined here and online. We're really excited to have you here. And thank you for Monday, who is hosting us so graciously. I'm really excited about it. I really been waiting for a UX research meetup for a long time, and we have two amazing speakers here today. So because we're already late, I'm gonna start right now. So I want to introduce the first speaker, Esther. She's from here, from Monday. And before that, she used to work as a UX researcher at MyHeritage, and before that, as a product manager, which is a cool transition. I like it. And she's going to talk about her journey, or Monday's journey, to research democratization. So yeah, welcome.
Sigal, you want to say who you are? I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you, Sigal. Okay. Hi, everybody. You can hear me okay? Okay. I'm also so excited to have a UX researcher meetup. Yay. I think we've all been craving this after all this Corona and 2 years of not being able to see each other face to face. So I'm super excited to be here and to talk to you about our journey at Monday and how we as a UX research team, which I'll talk about how we do research here. So before we get into that, I want to take you back a little bit. Take you back on a time machine back to 2015. So as Sigal mentioned, I have a background as a product manager and moved later into UX research. And I want to talk about my experience as a product manager and some of the key things I was missing as a product manager. So in 2015, I was working for a company and we were working on a new idea. It's called Brightly, and actually it's still available today. If you look it up, it's an awesome resource, especially if you have children. And this idea was all about targeting parents, targeting educators, trying to get them to understand how to teach their kids and how to get everybody kind of excited and into the idea of teaching kids literacy and loving books. This was the content. It was geared toward, like I said, teachers, moms, and the main goal here was to send out a newsletter, an email newsletter on a weekly basis. And we would customize the content based on lots of preferences. And this was a super exciting idea that we had. We did a lot of actually research on moms ahead of time. We saw a lot of mothers who were struggling with this issue, mothers, fathers, educators who were struggling with this issue, needed some guidance. You know, we had developers, designers, product manager, myself, all behind this idea, very, very excited. We launched this thing. It was a website, tons of content, and this email newsletter that would go out. And a few months after we launched it, we looked at the numbers, we looked at the clicks, we looked at the engagement, were people actually going to the website, and they were not where we wanted them to be. But we couldn't understand why. You know, here's this problem. I'm sure you've come across this thing before where you look at the data, the graph is sort of going down and you can't really explain it. You know, we all really believed in this idea. We felt like we really nailed it. So what did we decide to do? We wanted to figure out what was going on. So we thought we would talk to our subscribers. What about the people that are subscribing to this newsletter? What do they think of what we're sending them? We wanted their feedback. So in those days, back in 2015, if you could remember that far back, there wasn't Zoom. I went into a room and I called people on the phone. I had their phone numbers, right? Can you imagine? On a landline, right? Plugging in their numbers. So this was me alone as a product manager, really wanting to understand why this whole thing didn't work out the way we wanted it to work out. And the things I heard were really surprising. I heard things like, and these were people who were our customers, essentially. They were subscribing to our newsletter. They would say things like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, what is this again? Can you remind me what Brightly is? Did I sign up for this? It's not familiar to me. There really isn't any copy here about what the newsletter is. Like, I don't really understand what this is even all about. Is this about books? Like, what is this even about? People were confused, you know? And I just couldn't believe it that, the people who were what I thought were loyal users just didn't even get the whole concept. They couldn't even remember signing up to it in the first place. And for me, there were such simple things that could be done to this email, like even explaining what Brightly is at the top, like a little bit of copy, just understanding, making it clear what our mission was. These little things were missing. And I also felt very alone in that moment. There was no designer, there was no developer, there was no content person. My whole team, it was just me on the phone with these people. And I wanted to pass that over, right? I wanted some of these user quotes, really hearing these people that are supposed to be our users. I wanted the rest of the team to hear it, for it to really drive them to take action and make improvements so we could, really get our numbers up and really get engagement up. And at that point, I really swore to myself that I wouldn't work like this again. Like, there has to be a better way to getting the team really involved and really hearing from users on a regular basis. And I made it my mission to change the way I worked. So I'll just make a quick introduction. As Sigal said, I moved from being a product manager to a UX researcher about 5 years ago. And now I'm at Monday. I've been here for about 2 years. And I started here as the very first UX researcher, which very interesting challenge, I'll tell you. But I'm happy to say today we're at 3 UX researchers, woo, around here. Plus we have an awesome intern, Ellie, big shout out. So yeah, I think that background as a product manager and understanding how starved teams are for user insights really drove me to where I'm at today. Okay, so let's talk about democratization and why it's so important, and how this idea, this culture of democratizing research supports this whole idea that I just talked about, bringing those user insights, bringing that user voice into the teams every day, just as the team's working on things. How can we do that? And I want to talk about why that's so important and why ultimately, as UX researchers, it's going to bring your work to the next level. How's it going to make your impact as a UX researcher that much more powerful? I want to cover really the real stuff. I want to get into the practicals. I think democratization has become a bit of a buzzword, and everybody's doing democratized research. And yeah, it's the latest thing, but I really want to show you what it looks like at Monday, actual photos. I'll talk about why democratization is awesome for UX researchers. Like I said, how it can change the way you're involved in everything that the team is doing. And isn't that kind of our dream as UX researchers, right? Making an impact, making sure the team sees how important what the work that we do is. And then the third thing is, if everybody's doing UX research, right? Democratization, it's democratic. What's the UX researcher doing, right? So what are we doing as a team, us as UX researchers at Monday? What do our responsibilities look like? Because it's different. It's not like we're just doing the research. We're also supporting lots of people who are doing research. So we'll talk a bit about that. Okay, so let's get right into it. What does it actually look like? So here's one example, and this to me is democratization. Here we have a whole team. It's actually lots of different roles here. We have developers, designers, analysts, product managers. We're all sitting in a room together, and we have a user. We're talking. She's up on the screen. I've blocked her out for, to keep her information private. And as you can see, the whole team is watching this user. This particular person was going through Monday.com for the very first time. And we watched as she really struggled through a lot of things that we consider very basic because we're so used to using the tool. And if you look here, everybody is taking notes, really observing, really actively listening, taking notes. And right after this session, we're all going to talk about what we just saw. Where did the user experience delight? Where did the user experience friction? What were some of the surprising things that you saw? And it's really a lively, active discussion, but it all revolves around this one user. I'm here leading the discussion with the user, so the user only sees me. I mean, she's aware that we have some folks observing, but this is, I think, a classic example of what we do at Monday and how we really try and remove barriers to users. So the whole room is, sorry, there's a bit of an echo. All good. The whole room is seeing the user firsthand. There's no sort of like borders there, right? And this is a really powerful ceremony that we do at Monday. So this is maybe on a bigger scale. I mean, think of all the people in the room and the different schedules we have to organize and make sure everybody attends and make sure they bring their pens and their papers. But democratization also happens on a smaller scale. So I want to give you one example of that. Here we have Bar. Bar is a developer at Monday, and Bar is working on a particular feature. And he's wanting to know what's going on with usability sessions. He jumps into Slack, and this is not because he's just curious. He knows we're running usability sessions. The designer is actually running them in this case. She's here. You can see her, Mai. He's working on a particular feature, and via these usability sessions, he'll understand where he needs to prioritize his time. At Monday, the developers generally are not given a list of requirements, like in a lot of organizations I've worked in. There's not a huge spec document. We have a solution that's going to solve a user's problem, and the developer really has a lot of ownership over solving a user need and bringing delight to the user. And there's a lot of wiggle room to get creative and to deliver on that promise to fulfill a user need. So in this case, we as a team are working on this feature. It's something we really want to get out. And during this whole process, we're involving users. Every day, we have a bunch of user sessions where we're showing the user an early version of the feature and seeing, again, where is the user confused? Where does the user actually enjoy this feature and is really getting it and is really seeing the value of it? And these are happening throughout the week, and the whole team is involved. Bar is also in these sessions. He's hearing directly from users. And the feedback that we get from users, the input from users, is directly going to impact his work. It's going to help him to prioritize and understand where he needs to focus. So in this case, it's really on a much smaller scale. It's a small team working on something very specific, but they need that user input to understand how to move forward. So let's get into the definition of democratization, just to all get on this same page. Those are some examples of like the everyday in Monday. But the definition of democratization here, I think this is a good one. Democratized research is all about empowering anyone in the organization to create and consume user research to make informed decisions. And I want to focus on that informed decisions piece. So that's really the goal of democratizing research. It's helping everybody to make decisions with some evidence, right? And if you really think about it, we're not just talking about big decisions here. Sometimes there's big strategic planning going on for the company, roadmap planning coming up, and research is really needed. And that becomes like a big, meaty effort from researchers. There's a deep dive that maybe we have to go on. But decisions are being made every single day at Monday, and I'm sure in your organizations, from like small copy changes in the UI to, like we just saw with Bar, figuring out what to work on next and how to prioritize your tasks. These are important decisions that are being made every day. And my point of view on democratized research is bringing research into that decision-making process. How do we bring the users in? How do we bring our methods into that decision-making process so that teams can always move forward with that user perspective in mind? And that's what we're trying to support at Monday. And I want to dig into the team decision point because it's really important and it's helped us. I mean, I think one of the big, complaints or challenges to UX research is it takes too much time. We don't have the time to kind of, talk to users. We got to go, we got to ship. But in some cases, we found that talking to users, bringing users into the decision-making process actually helps us move forward a lot quicker, fail faster, learn faster. So let's talk about a specific case study. So for those of you who are not so familiar with Monday, just to give you a little bit of context, this is monday.com. On the left, we have the desktop experience. So what you're looking at here is a board or a project. You might have all your work tasks in here for the day. The whole team might put all their work tasks in, and they can assign it to different people and change the status really easily. And there's really a lot of flexibility there. And this is our mobile version today on the right. Okay. So the mobile team has a really big challenge. What you're seeing on the desktop is quite large, quite complex. There's a lot of important data there. How do you fit something like that into a mobile experience, right? So that's the things they're dealing with. One of the challenges with what we currently have today that we've seen is that when users, active users, people who are engaged with Monday, people who are using Monday every single day, when they move from desktop to mobile, there's a bit of a learning curve there. As you can see, they don't resemble each other as much as they could. We really wanted to bridge that gap and make sure that people who were working on the desktop could immediately just jump into mobile if they needed to. And there's no learning curve whatsoever. It all felt familiar. They can recognize all their boards, all their projects very, very easily. Something we really wanted to improve. And we've seen it, via a lot of talking to users and understanding this was a problem, and we want to improve it. So the mobile team designed a new mobile home screen, right? So that when you go into mobile, you see much more. As you can see, there's like visuals of the board, and our boards are very colorful. The status, the little columns, they're very colorful. So if I work on desktop and I know my colors, immediately when I go into mobile, I'll have this like visual cue. I'll know which board I need to go into. So that was the general idea here. And the team thought we would offer the user two different versions. They could change the layout, either a more text heavy version, that's layout number one, if you really know the names of all your projects and you can easily spot them, and then a much more visual version, that's layout number two. So for people who are more visual and don't really read a lot of text, we thought that would be an awesome solution for them. So we're all excited about this. The mobile team is, really behind this idea. They've worked on it for a long time, but of course we want to gain some more confidence. So we're going to involve users like we always do and make sure they can easily use it. So the designer built a prototype, and we have recently set up a usability lab here at Monday. This is a new thing for us, and it's pretty cool. It's almost like a movie screening, like a big movie premiere for your new feature. And the quality is really cool, and it gets everybody super involved. It's in this room, as you can see. Maybe it's familiar to you. So we bring users into the office and we ask them to try the mobile prototype. And the whole team is watching here in this room. And again, really actively listening, taking notes, trying to understand, have we accomplished our goal? Are users who are using desktop able to easily transition? And one thing that immediately became clear to us after probably 3 users, because it happened with all of them, but we did do it with 5, 6 users, is that the second layout, every time the users would encounter the second layout, they would kind of squint their eyes. They were trying to read the visual here, like really carefully. They were using it as like a preview for what they needed. We didn't intend for them to be using it like that. And it was hard for them to use. They expected to be able to really see all the content of their boards by looking at the second one. So, we had a lot of other questions about different pieces of the design, making sure everything's understood. The mobile team afterward, after all the users leave us, we have a lively discussion about what we just observed. And the most interesting thing happened where everybody just immediately understood there was really no reason to build layout number 2. Layout number 1 was useful for everybody. There was a lot of value there. And every user we met struggled with layout number 2. So here's the team. They all just observed something together. There was no debate. There was no, but I really believe in this one, or I really think users are going to love this. Like I just feel it in my heart and in my gut, There was none of that. We all just saw the same users. We all saw the same thing. And literally everybody just said, we're not building layout number 2. There's no way our developers are going to put the time into layout number 2. And we did end up saving lots of time in terms of simplifying this feature, simplifying the screen. And that's really the beauty of democratized research. And that's why I said, this argument about research slows us down, I don't believe it. In this case, everybody observed the same thing. Everybody got aligned really quickly. We didn't waste time on debating issues or differences of opinion. The developers, the designers, it was immediately obvious. It was clear to everybody. We made a decision. We moved forward. We were on our way to ship this thing. And, I'm not the only person saying this. Erica Hall, who I'm sure a lot of you know, well-known UX research author, UX researcher goddess, if you will. She says this too. She says it better than me. The point of research isn't to uncover something no one knows. It's about everyone working together to make decisions in a shared reality. I really love that, right? We've just all encountered reality, the same reality, these users struggling with this thing. Now we can make a decision much more effectively, much more quickly. And that's really the beauty of opening up everybody to these sessions with users. And I think this is very different than maybe our traditional idea of UX research. You know, I think the image of bringing a UX researcher into a team for some non-researchers might be kind of like this, like Moses. You know, you as a UX researcher, you'll go off into the distance, you'll go to this mountaintop to customer land. You'll come back to us people, us commoners. You'll bring us answers, surprises, things we never heard of, right? And you know, sometimes that happens. It's amazing when that happens, when we could talk to users and there's this big surprise, you know, that is a part of research for sure. But I like to think of a UX researcher more as something like this, like the host of a dinner party. Okay, imagine you're hosting a little something for some of your high school friends, some of your work friends. They don't know each other. They're from different worlds. It's on you, right, as the host of the party, to let everybody mingle, introduce everybody, make sure everybody's having a good time and socializing. That's the way I look at my role. Okay, I want to introduce the team to our users, have them socialize, have them love each other, learn about each other. And, you know, I can kind of fade into the background. I'm no Moses, you know, and let everybody kind of learn from each other. And I think that's really the model we're striving for. And this is all to say that we at Monday, we don't see democratization as like a compromise we've made. You know, like there are not enough researchers to support everybody. So we're going to have to do this democratization thing. No, we really see it like as our agenda. It's our North Star. It's what we strive to always be better at. And we always want to make the team bring users into their decision-making process. We're always trying to think about ways we can do that. We want users present in the team's day-to-day rhythm. They should just hear, see, watch a clip of a user. Make sure it's like just in their consciousness every single day. And also make it as easy as possible for teams to reach out to users if they want to do it themselves. And, you know, I'm speaking very highly of this. I believe in this very strongly, but I also want you to hear from my team here, non-researchers, product designers, product marketing, developers. And there were lots more people who were offering quotes, but I could only fit 3 in. So research is really a part of everybody's job here. And they find it essential to their job. Like they don't feel like they could do their job effectively without having users involved. Okay, now I'll talk about how our UXR team, our UX research team actually makes this happen. How do we support this model? So from our perspective, we look at our jobs in 2 different buckets. The first one is collaborative research practices. So when we're doing research, as researchers, we have a specific subject, a specific area we want to dig into. We're always thinking about how to bring the team in. How do we make it so that we're not doing that Moses thing where we're going away for a while and we'll come back with some insights. So I'll talk a bit about that. And the second thing is supporting the team so that they're doing their own UX research. So we are looking for ways for them to be empowered and for them to feel comfortable and for them to understand the methods and the different tools we have so that they can go off and do it without us. So the first one, collaborative research. So here's an example. So like I said, let's say a researcher, and we do take on our own research projects. It's not all the team doing it, but let's say there's a big thing coming up, a new product we're looking into. We try and really involve the team throughout the process as much as possible. So here's one example. You're looking at a post on Monday.com. We use Monday.com a lot. And even when we're kicking off the research, we're coming up with the research plan. We try to do it in a very approachable, collaborative way. So here's me letting everybody know we're about to launch some user interviews. And here's the goals the way I see it. But team, developers, designers, product managers, what questions do you have? If you were to sit with a user, what do you want to know? What are you curious about? It's very much a democratic thing when we kick off research. We really want to involve the team and make sure they're invested in seeing the results of the research. So it's very, very powerful. And there's a discussion back and forth. I think, hey, Esther, I think you should focus more on this because we're about to work on this. And there's a really good kind of feedback loop before we kick off the research. And then throughout the research project itself, we're sharing bits and bytes with the team throughout. We don't have insights ready. We haven't done synthesis. It's super early. And they know that. There's lots of disclaimers. But we really want the team to feel that the research is happening. And we want them to learn along the way, even in little ways. So this is a typical post we do after a user interview or even a usability session, a quick TLDR of what we learned from the user, some important points. We often share clips, screenshots of what we saw from the user. And that creates this kind of, lively discussion with the team as the research is happening. And I think it also makes us better researchers, and it's not just for the team. We're not just serving the team, but I get a lot of feedback about, hey, Esther, that user mentioned this specific thing. Let's dig into that further. If any other user mentions that, let's focus on that. Let's drill into that a little bit more. And so that ensures my research is going to serve the team really well at the end too. So there's this really good collaboration there that's benefiting me as well. I talked a bit about this earlier, our usability lab and our live user interviews. This is a really effective ceremony we do with teams where the team observes this one-on-one session and then we talk about it afterward. And we do it as a regular ceremony. And then the independent UX research piece, very, very important here. So on this side, we're trying to empower all teams to do their own research when needed. And we try and support them along the way throughout the process. Okay. We think about how can we prepare them for doing research? How can we help them during the execution process of research, right? When they're actually out there and setting up interviews, talking to users. We want to make sure they have what they need to keep going, feel confident about doing it and doing it in a good way, a non-biased way. And then ultimately, when they're done with the research, how can we support them there, right? Once they've had some learnings, we as a team, as a company, as an organization, we want to make sure that's being shared. So we've set up a few things that have been really, really helpful for this process. So first of all, we regularly hold training sessions with different teams. Sometimes teams come to us. Sometimes we offer training sessions on our own. We cover different subjects. In this case, we were talking about usability testing and how to set that up with the designers. And that's a regular thing. That really lets the teams know what's available to them in terms of tools, methods, best practices. So that's going to help them, be in this research mindset. Like, oh, these are different things I could be doing more of. I'll consider that, for my own research. During the research itself, we found this to be really, really powerful. We created a handbook for our teams. So anybody can go in here and see lots of resources on doing research, how-tos, FAQs. We've created a lot of templates. So, give me an example of a script I should use in a user interview. Like, what's a standard way I should even start up the call? That's in here. And anytime somebody comes to us in Slack, usually with a question, we're sending them to this handbook almost always. And if we don't have a thing in the handbook for them to read, we'll create it. This is an awesome resource for anybody to kind of study up and make sure they have what they need. We talk about the different tools we have. We post, new features that some of these tools release. And we keep it updated on a regular basis. So here's an example. Usability Hub, one of the tools we use, has a new feature that we think would be super helpful to everybody. This reminds everybody these tools are available to you. You could be doing this. Here's the instructions. Here's a quick video about it. We really want people to be engaged and feel like, it's very easy to do for themselves. And then the last piece is the knowledge sharing, which is super important. We don't want people just doing the research, but we also want people bringing back important learnings, sharing it with the team, also making sure research is not repeated over and over again. So we have a centralized board on monday.com. Again, big plug. We have a board for a knowledge base, and we ask everybody who's done research to go in here, and as simple as possible. That's also, really what we strive for, simplicity. We're not asking people to create a long structured presentation or research report. Different things work for different people. We just ask that people tell us what the subject was, the main questions, and a link and their name. And this becomes almost like a directory. So if I'm about to work on something and I'm thinking about kicking off some new research, I better go to the knowledge base and maybe check if something related was actually researched before. So I can contact one of these people if it's a subject that I need to know about. So all that positivity, I do want to throw in kind of a caveat here, because I think this is a question that comes up from a lot of researchers. Yeah, I'm seeing like some people like, yeah, exactly. So what about research quality? If everybody's doing research, how do you ensure the research is good, right? I mean, I've seen my share of designers kind of, no offense to any designers here, go into some of these tools. They really believe in their design, right? And they're kind of, just want confirmation on this. They're not really there to understand if this is not a good direction. Yeah. So what do we do about quality? How do we ensure that the research being done is good research, right? And we're not taking decisions from this research that are problematic. Okay. So this is an issue, right? I mean, we have this challenge. It's something we talk about all the time here. And it happens, we jump into some of these tools and we look at some of the studies and we kind of cringe a little bit, but we try and shift our thinking on this. We're so happy to see that people want to use these tools, that they're trying their best to speak to users and get that user input. It's a good sign for us. And we look at it as an opportunity to educate more and set up maybe a different kind of training session about that particular area, or how can we allow people to up their skills even further? We see those kinds of things and we feel it's like our job to step in and not go to them with our finger and say, no, that's wrong, but really to empower them to improve all the time, So some things we've done to ensure quality, just some tips for you guys if you're encountering this. It's important to keep an eye on quality. Very important. We want to make sure people are doing good research, but don't police, right? Our goal on our team is to get everybody to feel comfortable doing research. So really saying things are wrong or incorrect is a delicate thing. So we're not policing people, but we're really looking at them as opportunities to, improve, like I said. So we set up training sessions. If we see a problematic area, like there's a lot of preference testing. There was a lot of people launching tests where we were just asking users what they like best. We set up a whole session about what makes for a good preference test, right? Clearly, that's an area people want to know about. We try and keep communication encouraging and constructive. Maybe it means setting up some checklists, some templates. Maybe people need some ideas of questions they should be asking. So we want to get creative and constructive when it comes to quality issues. So just to wrap up, I think democratization, as I think I've spelled out, is really, really powerful, both for the teams and for the UX researcher. And, you don't have to set up a usability lab or do any really major changes to move towards this model and get UX research in your team's day-to-day. So even with small shifts, I think they make a big, big impact. Even inviting non-researchers to user sessions and talking to the non-researcher after that session. What did you hear? What was interesting for you? Super important. Lets the person who's involved in this discussion, even get to ask questions to the user. It could be really, really powerful. Share videos and images early and often. Don't wait till your whole entire insights report is perfect and there's a bow on it and you're ready to present it to all your stakeholders. Maybe there's an interesting thing a user said. Share it as a clip in Slack. Get people from the team, be that dinner party host, get people from the team knowing your users a little bit better. And then creating a regular beat, a UXR ceremony, UX research ceremony, whether it's inviting people to an interview once a month or something like that can be really, really effective. So yeah, I encourage all of you to try some of these things. I've seen it with my own eyes. Your team's appetite for more research will grow. Once they start to get a little taste of this, they'll be more and more interested. And in turn, your impact as a UX research will definitely grow.
Thank you so much. It was so inspiring. I really loved it. I hear all the time about research democratization and kind of the discussions about it, but it's really great to see how it works in a real company, in a real team. So I love it. Yeah. I'm wondering how many of the people here are UX researcher as the role? Nice amount. How many are designers? Nice. I love it. Great. Yeah, I think we can all learn from these things. Okay, our next speaker, Danielle. Just a few words. Yeah, Danielle. No, you can stand. It's okay. She started her UX researcher career as an intern at Autodesk and managed to get her way through to the actual role and stay there for almost 5 years. And yeah, it feels a little bit familiar, Autodesk. So, and then recently she joined Google and she had a lot of insights from her onboarding process. And that's what she'll share with us today, how to start a new UX research position and live to tell the tale.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. As Sigal mentioned, my name is Danielle. And today I'm going to talk about my experience as a new Noogler, which is an new Googler. We call ourselves, they call us Nooglers actually. So I'm gonna share with you some tips about how to do the onboarding successfully. But first I want to tell you a bit about how I started my career. So I started in a product called AutoCAD Mobile within Autodesk. I studied customers and we tried to figure out together a very big question of how to take the legacy, very heavy AutoCAD product and put it into a mobile app. So I spent 5 years there. And when it was time for me to move on, I interviewed 7 times at Google. Yeah, that's, very lightweight. And finally, I got the very, happy email of welcome to Google, and I joined Google Cloud. So when you start at Google, there is 3 weeks of something called GTI, Google Tech Immersion. So all people joining the engineering team are doing it, and it's really cool. It's like a hackathon. It's like the Bazinga. You get to work, and you get to work on a feature for one of Google product, and it's really exciting. And you're like, oh my God, what am I joining to? That's amazing. And then I started the actual work within my team. Here is my team, and this is the product I work at. So it's called DMS, Database Migration Service. And today I can tell you that it's pretty exciting, even though it doesn't look very exciting. So everyone who wants to migrate to Google Cloud and they want to move all their databases to the cloud, they use our product. So this is pretty awesome. But when I just started, my reaction was, what is this? Come again, and what am I doing here? I don't know nothing about databases and cloud and all this engineering stuff. I'm a psychologist. So how can I, close this huge gap? So let's face it, onboarding sucks. And we all know it. It's really hard to start in a new place. You get so overwhelmed by all the new people and terms and things that are new to you. This is my son, by the way. After finishing the 3 weeks of GTI, you get this very ugly hat. You take a picture of it, and then you lose it forever. So yeah, that's amazing. So today I'm going to share some tips about how you can make this onboarding a little bit less stinky. And how to reduce the stinkiness, I used 4 simple principles. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into all of them. Meet. Don't just do deliver. Planning is key, and celebrate research. So whether if you're an introvert or extrovert person, like it or not, if you are UXR, you're probably good in communicating with other people. And what other occasion you can use this amazing skill other than meetings? We all love meetings, right? And when you start a new job, you do so many meetings. That's almost everything you do is you meet. And I've noticed there are 3 types of meetings that I typically do. So the meet and greet meetings, reoccurring meetings, and a fly on the wall meetings. And let's talk about each one of them. So when you start, you usually do meet and greet meetings with everyone, everyone who's somehow related to your job, to your team, to your product. You meet and greet with them. And if you're not intending to do that, it's really important. So do it. The extra tip I can give you is find out who already is speaking to the customers. So this can be like sales people or customer success people, people who actually go and talk to the customers. They usually have like many insights that they gather from the customers, and nobody is actually, speaking to them and hearing all these insights. So when you come and speak to them, they're most of the time very excited to share all these insights. In Google, I found out that there is a persona called customer engineer, or a CE in short. So these kind of people, they are engineers who go to the customers, to the very big customers. Like if Spotify wants to move to the cloud, to Google Cloud, these CEs will tailor the right solution for them. So they are very deeply into the details, and they speak with customers every day because this is their actual job. So when I started, I did a lot of meet and greet with these CEs, and we're going to talk about it in a bit. When you do meet and greet, like think in the back of your head that you need to find your research advocates and research allies. So research advocates are people who really care about research, even though it's not like their day job. So maybe they shouldn't traditionally care so much, but they do. So these people, it's important that you will have them on your side. They are the people who will be engaged. They will come to user sessions. They will, ask questions in the research share out. So they will bring traction to the research. And then we have the research allies. So these are designers or other researchers in your team or parallel team that you can partner up with and collaborate with. A tip I can give you is search for people who are already new to their team, and you can, establish good relationship and grow together. So we are talking about meeting and greeting, right? What's happening in this meeting and greeting except meeting and greeting? So even though I joined Google and, I thought everybody knows user research and it's so well spread. Well, it's not, at least not in Google Cloud. And many of my team, they don't know this practice. So they were like, are you the new data analyst? Yes, we were waiting for you. Sorry. But yeah, so I started with speaking about user research, like what do I do? What can you expect from me? And then I started to asking them questions and interview them. And we talked about what open questions do they have about the customers, like what's interesting for them? What hypotheses do they have? Because everybody thinks that they know what the customers love or hate, or what use cases do people have? And also, how do they expect us to collaborate in the future? So this gives you a really good context of the space that you're getting into and like what to expect in the next few months. So after meeting and greeting, you start to establish like the reoccurring meetings. So of course, you're going to have a weekly meeting with your teammates and with your manager and anyone who is in your immediate closed team. But also, I really advise you to have a monthly meeting with your allies. Remember, those are the researchers or, the new designer who came. So establish a good monthly or bi-monthly meeting with them. This can be a very good investment. Ask for a mentor. So whether you're in a big company or a small company, it's very, very useful to have a mentor as you start. It really changes the entire experience. And in Google, I have a mentor. It's really priceless to me. You know, the psychological support provided is amazing, but also, you know, he helped me to figure out my way in the first few months. If you join a bigger company, search for the UXR Guild or the UX Guild. It's an amazing place for you to find allies and share feedback. And one of my allies that I met in the UXR Guild is right here, Melissa. So she is a researcher in a parallel team. And, you know, Google is so huge that we would never hear about each other, I think, if not for this UXR Guild. And now we have monthly meetings, and I think it's amazing how much you learn from, you know, the shared experiences we have, the shared challenges we have. So this is great. Ovid. Okay, so when I started, I joined so many technical meetings, and I, you know, understood about like 20% of what was going on there, because it is so engineering focused, very heavy meetings. But what was interesting to me is to understand the dynamics within the room, like what's happening, what people are arguing about, where are the conflicts. And as a UXR, it's really important for you to document the fields that people, you know, the passionate fights about, and meetings after meetings happening, and like the tones becoming a bit louder. So as a UXR, you can step in and suggest research. Hey, we can, you know, take this to the customer, maybe build a prototype, and just, you know, reach a consensus via UXR. When you start, you hear many people say that, you know, ask tons of questions, as many questions as possible. There are no stupid questions. But if you actually try to apply this tip, it will be like no meeting will get anywhere. You will just ask 1,000 questions, and discussion will be really going off track. So you should be aware, be very thoughtful about who you ask and when. So for me, I tried to document all the things that they were like Chinese to me, and try to figure out myself, like Google it or Moma it, which is the like internal Google search engine, or ask my mentor or my colleagues in a better context, and not in a fly on the wall meeting, for example. Because anyway, we learn by repetition. And I think we all have this experience of we need to hear things time and time again before we even absorb it and we understand it and remember it. So it's not like if I ask this question right now, tomorrow when somebody will say serverless, you know, I will, yeah, of course, I know what it is. No, I need to observe it. I really need to take the time and to take it in before I even can speak that language. So patience is very, very important. And sorry, Monday, for showing this. We will get through this really quick. So you can really use any tool that you're comfortable with. For me, I use the Asana because I'm used to it. But when I started, I was so overwhelmed by all the links sent to me and all the information. And I was like trying to bookmark everything, but then, you know, you can't find anything in your bookmark, and it becomes like in 2 days, it became a mess. So I started to use this board to actually document in a very organized way the people I'm meeting for one-on-ones and the notes that I'm taking. And I had like I don't know, 40 of them. So it really helped me to keep track. All the new terms that I heard, and I hear them repeating. So I know, okay, this is important. I need to take the time and read about it. And also, whatever organization that you're joining, even if it's the smallest one, probably there is some past research being done by others, whether it's PMs or anyone in the company. So for me, I just documented all the research here because it was really important to me to understand what we already know about the customers. Okay, so I think this is important for not only for people who just starting like a new role, but also to anyone. Don't just do, deliver. So when you start a new job, you do so much learning every day. This is honestly all you do. So if you want to really use your time effectively, spend a little more effort and to make deliverables so you can share it back to your team and make some impact. And I give you some examples to explain what I actually mean, because I know it's a bit vague. So remember when I told you that I talked with these customers, engineers, we did some meetings and greetings. What happened is when I started doing that, I took notes from each meeting. And then I shared it with my fellow designer. And she was like, oh, this is really interesting. And she started joining these meetings. And then she invited another like engineering manager. So it became like a whole thing. And I realized that even though it just began as meet and greets, there are some valuable insights being learned via these sessions. So I created this report and shared it with the entire team to share with them what we learned. And I saw that even people that are a few years in the company and they know a lot about the field, there was some new insights for them in that. Another example is from my fellow Nugler researcher who started the same time as I did, and we are allies, of course, So he's been asked to do demos for customers to a new feature. And this is nowhere close like for a UXR job. Like it's not our job to do demos usually for customers. But what he did, he's been asked to do it because the PM was on a leave, so they had a shortage of staff. So he came into this. And what he did, he documented all the questions that customers had during the sessions. So whatever was, not clear to them, or they had concerns about, or they were wondering, can you allow this functionality? He ended up documenting it and analyzing it and share it back to the team. And he had some really interesting insights from it. So this is, I think, a great way to not just deliver. You're already doing it, so why not make it worth? And it can count and it can affect your entire team. Another example I think that can apply for almost every organization is to create a glossary. So every term that you're not familiar with, you can document it somewhere and have like a shared space that other people who are new to the team can come and benefit from. When you think about delivering and not just doing, think about your strength and really build on that. It shouldn't add too much work into your plate because it thinks that you are anyway doing. So just add like 20% more of work to make the deliverables, and by that increase your impact drastically, because it's not just now me doing it for myself, it's helping the entire team. And remember the story when I came to, I talked to the designer and she was like, oh, this is really interesting. So this is my advice to you. It starts from there. Be transparent with your team about what you're doing, and you will find what's interesting for people, and you can go from there. Because being a newbie not only stinks, it's also putting you in a very unique position. You now learn so much like a baby, really. You learn every day, and you need to understand that others have something to learn too. Even if there are 5 years in the company, they don't know everything about this market, about the customers. So you can really help them grow along with you. planning. So planning is important. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I know every company has their own like planning method, and you will probably integrate your planning within this planning, whether it's like semester or yearly planning. I trust you on that, but it's important that you choose your first project wisely and plan ahead wisely. And the way you do it is you get to know what people are working on, what are the OKRs. You solicit research ideas from everyone and document it. Even if it's like, the QAs or engineers, you want to know what people are asking about, because this will be, you are searching for the project that will be most impactful. And then you have your stakeholders and managers prioritize. I mean, don't feel bad if somebody is like, you solicit ideas and somebody tell you, I'm really curious about blah, 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 and then it doesn't get into the prioritization. It's completely fine. It's better to document it and be aware of it than to, never hear it. And I think it's different from researcher to researcher. For me, I know that at any point of time, I would like to work on like a big, juicy, strategic project alongside with some tactical, time box, simpler project. So when I plan ahead and I think about timelines, I keep that in mind. So be aware to how you like to work, whether you're more of a multitasker or you're more of a, dive deep and heads down person and try to plan ahead. It's important to not overcommit yourself to too many projects. Remember, you're just starting. So there will be a lot of meetings, a lot of learnings. Things might be slower than what you're used to. Celebrate research. Okay, so Esther talked about it a lot, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But for me, research is fun and it's amazing. And even though I started at Google, people are not aware to this fact always. So it's my job to spread the word. And it all starts with inclusion. So share your research plan ahead and research schedule ahead. And don't be afraid to invite others into your sessions. And by that, I don't mean just, have them on silence or hear them watch or let them watch the recording. Have them as active as possible. And don't be afraid of them taking over your session, because by inviting them, you start to form that like this culture around research, which is really important. Also, as UXR, we tend to pay attention to bias, and it's our job to, comment on that or educate others when we hear bias. For example, when I hear my stakeholders say, oh yeah, we are going to, usability test the lean version so that people fail and we can prove that we need more resources or something like that, then it's my job to come in and say, but they can also succeed. And then we save a lot of time, exactly like Esther mentioned. So when you get the sense that people are biased, you can just, bring them back to track and remind them that we're not, like we are neutral and all the things that we know so well as UXLs. And lastly, don't forget to breathe. It's important. The first few months can be really difficult. But if you meet effectively, you don't just deliver and plan ahead, and also celebrate research and, spread the word around research, I'm sure you will be just fine.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't need a presentation. Where were you when I just started? Yeah, Autodesk, but without this nice presentation. So yeah, 2 floors under, and you didn't give me this nice presentation to tell me how to start my role. Yeah, generally both of your presentations do not make me look good. I have 2 designers here and I'm quite ashamed. Sorry. Okay, I know you must have many questions. So let's do some Q&A. We'll bring up chairs. We'll go row. Wherever they'll see us. High tech, yeah. Good. Okay, go ahead. And we'll move it around us. I actually have tons of questions, but if anyone here wants to start, does anyone have any question? Oh, we need to also do that Q&A. If you're at home and you want to ask questions, just use the Q&A and someone here hopefully will see it. They'll tell us. Great. Okay. Maybe I'll start. I have a question and I'll start and then you're later. Because yeah, I'm really interested. And I think that both of you can answer because both of you kind of have a lot of experience. But I like really to talk about research democratization. I like both of the talks. But I'm interested to know if you have any idea of, like, I guess it's not for everyone. And if you have any idea of what kind of companies or cultural organization it kind of works well with, and which companies might not want to do too much democratization. And I mean, basically on the part of people doing the research by themselves and not just joining the research.
Okay, it's a very good question, I think. Based on what I've read about democratization, because I haven't worked in a company like this, but you know, I'm working at Monday, right? So think about the experience we're delivering to people, the product. It's software people are using in their work day to day. I'm not working for a health company. I'm not working at a financial company where things are extremely sensitive and risky. Sure, we do some of that stuff. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but I think that's one area where I've heard from a lot of researchers where democratization is very problematic. Big decisions are being made, and any one of those decisions is, really tricky. We make a lot of tricky decisions at Monday too. That's not to discount the importance, but I think we have a culture of learning, and we welcome failure, and we really truly believe in an idea based on the qualitative data, based on the quantitative data. But there's always this understanding at Monday that we're going to test everything. Really, everything we launch to users is done in a progressive way. So we're doing A/B testing, or we're launching something to a small group of people. So we really try to minimize risk along the way. So I think that's a key ingredient to doing democratization. The second thing is what I talked about in my presentation when I talked about this developer, Bar, who probably hates that I keep mentioning his name, but he's awesome. There really is a culture of everybody's responsible for the user experience. I mean, whenever we talk to users and we ask them why they purchase Monday, it's one of the first things they mention is the user experience is amazing, the design, the UI. We really hold that up as like the most important feature. It's not a feature unto itself, but it's so important that our experience is intuitive and that our users truly enjoy it. And that's what differentiates us from a lot of other work tools. So there really is this culture of like developers, designers, product managers, marketing. We all really own that in a way, and we feel that very heavily. So by extension, of course, we're going to talk to our customers. Of course, we're going to try to understand what they need because we owe them that. We're going to deliver them that. So I do think Monday has a special culture where that's like really, really welcomed, and democratization can grow like very well there because of all that.
Great, thanks.
So can you say anything about the logistics of democratization? So like we all want to bring people in and have them actually see and hear the users on one hand. On the other hand, it's sometimes really hard to schedule meetings with multiple participants. And And yeah, so basically, how do you do that? And we want to deliver fast. So sometimes we want to do a study, we have questions, we could do it by ourselves by the end of the day, or maybe twice by the end of the day, but it's much harder when you need to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Logistics is a big part of what we do. I mean, you hear a lot about the growth of the research ops community, right? Operations is a very big part of what we do. Like it's challenging for sure, finding time with everybody, and making sure people show up. They say they have every intention of showing up. It sounds really interesting and they just can't, things get challenging. So it doesn't, we've had plenty of failures. We don't have the perfect model or the perfect formula. And we do have to pick and choose. It depends on the team, their interests, their appetite, their time. Maybe they're dealing with like a really important high priority item and they don't have the time to participate. And so we move on. We want to move fast, just like you mentioned. And so, we can't involve the team in this particular project, but let's make sure the next time we try and involve them or try and involve a few people, we make compromises for sure. I think what's been really key though, is to deliver as much as you can to get that like appetite, to get that interest. If you can invite, especially developers, because maybe that's, I think, the biggest challenge for me, at least, has been to get a lot of developers involved. If you can say that feature you just worked on last week, we just launched it, we're going to have a user come in and try it. Like, don't you want to see what you just worked on, like directly, how a user sees that, if they like it, if they can use it? Like, wouldn't that be interesting to you? Because something really cool that's happened in some of these live sessions is like, you'll see a user struggle with something and literally the next day, a bunch of bugs suddenly get fixed and things that have been on the backlog, right, for like months and months and months. But it really drives people to take action, and they talk about it. They say, I never want to see a user experience that again. Like, that was so painful. Like, they literally get uncomfortable, and that's like that is empathy, right? Like, they so care about the user experience that they're not going to push that aside anymore. They're not going to deprioritize that. So trying to make the content super, super tied in to what they're working on, like tomorrow, has been very effective, to be like, yeah, I'm going to start coming to these more and more and more.
I had a developer fixing bugs as the session was like, he was sitting in the same desk and he was like fixing bugs. And by the end of the session, he was like, okay, done. Like, no more of this pain point.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I really agree that it's great that you managed to bring so many people together. Like, we saw the picture from here, which is a super cool. Maybe part of the show or having a party, celebrate, like you said, it's one of the other things that can bring people together. And yeah, and another thing that I kind of heard from your talk, and it kind of rings a bell, that if developers and other people from the team can actually make decision on the product and can impact the product, it makes them they would want to hear more about users. So it's not only your work, it's kind of the organizational culture, I guess. Great. We agree. That's great. Yes.
So likewise, I want to empower some of the designers I work with to conduct their own research. How do you decide what project to keep to yourself in your team?
That's a good question. I don't think there's like one rule exactly, but I would say at this point, we are expecting, empowering, giving them the tools to all the designers to do usability testing. Like, it's expected that they're working on something on a UI, like they've heard from users. They're not getting too far along with anything without at least even putting a static design in front of users. Now, if they need help with that, if they're unsure about the questions, we've actually I didn't get to show it, but there's some really cool things we started to do. We've given them, they work in Figma all the time. So Nadav here has been working on a Figma template that helps them to decide on which tools to use. So we try to make it as easy as possible for them, but kind of like a quick usability test with a few users. That's like an essential part of the designer responsibility. And some designers are very comfortable doing it. They've gotten enough training sessions, they've been here long enough, and others are not. And so we do more onboarding with them. We send them links to that handbook. We support them more. Our goal is to get all the designers feeling comfortable doing this.
Okay. We also got questions from our online participants. So I'm going to read one of them. So one is a new UX designer. She's just about, or he, I don't know, just about to facilitate a user journey mapping session. As an introvert, I find it struggle with delivering content confidentially. So getting the users excited about the new product. Any advice? Can be for both of you. Yeah, present it as a new person in the company also.
Yes. So I think for me, I think one of the tips I can give here is to somehow make things fun. So when you try to do like what we did in Autodesk, we had like AU, it's a big conference in Vegas. It's very stressful. And for me, I presented there and I did research there, like I think 2 months after I joined or something like that. And for me, it was like very like I was about to faint. But but the way that I structured that, so instead of just doing usability tests, we did like an escape room within the app. So the environment was super, you can't be too much stressful when people are trying to figure out riddles, how to save, how to find the thieves or something like that. It sounds childish, but we actually gathered so many interesting insights from this session. So I think if you're really stressed, you can be creative and think how you can do it in a more comfortable way for you so that everybody are more, relaxed and open. Yeah, this is top of mind.
I'm just thinking about this talk tonight and what helped me prepare for it actually was very basic, Danielle talked a lot about allies in the company. Like, I think it really ties into finding those people in the organization, or maybe it's outside, people, professionally who you trust, who you think have a good opinion, good constructive feedback, and do some run throughs. And, you talk to people who you're comfortable with, and it really changes the final thing. I've definitely felt that, especially when you're new, are these insights even going to be appreciated or accepted? I'm new, or do they know all this stuff already? I think all researchers, when they're new, they go through that. So first of all, it's normal. Second, practice, get feedback, be open to it. It really, really makes a difference.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes. I'm gonna pass it on.
Hey, so I wanted to ask, it sounds reasonable enough to convey democratization of usability testing, A/B testing and such, but quantitative information would be a lot harder to do so. So I wanted to ask if you have any kind of database, anything else that you share with your team to sort of convey the ideas into what you're doing with usability testing and A/B testing and such.
Team effort.
I mean, I can only speak to how we work at Monday, but we have a separate team for quantitative data for analysts. And, a lot of what we're doing on the UX research side is actually they're a big influence. There's a big culture at Monday of self-service data where you can go into some of the tools we have and find what you need. So we work, we collaborate with the analysts when it comes to A/B tests. If people have questions about that, then we do generally recommend that they talk to that team about that stuff. Does that answer your question? That sits in a separate area, and we have lots of collaboration with them, with that team. but I'm not sure what you meant by democratization is challenging when it comes to quantitative stuff. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Definitely. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I mean, launching a series of usability tests is one thing, but digging into the data, okay, I understood your question. Yeah. So we really do, we partner with an analyst on that stuff. And like I said, there is a culture of the quantitative analysts, you know, that team, and there is an analyst within every single team. You know, they value the qualitative data as well. So there is a real like appreciation there, like mutual appreciation there. So you're right. It's hard. It's not something most people, even myself, could usually do on my own, unless I've run my own survey or something like that. But I'll partner up with the relevant analysts to have a conversation. Like really, like I'll say, you know, we saw XYZ in the usability testing. Are you seeing anything like that in the data, or are there certain areas we can look at that might help support this? Is this something that's like we've seen it with 10 users, but can we find a much bigger sample of people that kind of supports this idea? And sometimes it's like, no, that's not a trend. And then other times they're coming to us and saying, we're seeing this thing in the data, but we don't really understand why it's going on. Have you come across anything in your usability tests? But you're right, it is an essential part of doing the deeper research, I would say, like making sure it lines up with the data and what's the data saying about this particular subject. It's a key ingredient. It's super, super important. But we do work with others on it generally. Yeah.
And also, I think that for many companies and teams, like using analytics is something that, you know, people do on a daily basis, and like developers are really used to it, at least from my experience. So sometimes, you know, integrating qualitative and, you know, gaining the trust of people to, okay, we should also launch a usability test. We shouldn't just trust the numbers and the data and the clicks. This is something to really find the meaning. This is something that was more challenging for me, at least.
Great. Okay. I agree with you 100%. I'm sure people here might have more questions, but we do want to wrap up, but you can stick around and ask questions. And if you're online and it's still working, then you can contact the speakers on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for joining us.